I work as a nurse with a partner 24 hours a day through 3. The task is simple: during the day to take patients to procedures, surgeries, doctors, x-rays, and so on. Most of them are sedentary, a little less often those lying down after operations, as well as those with cancer, from intensive care or palliative care. That's where they mostly anesthetize the dying. By the way, the word is from the Latin pallium, which means cloak or blanket, in general, not very nice. At night and near morning begins the shittiest part of the job: to pick up the dead from the wards, pack them in black plastic bags and take them to a small hospital morgue, or rather a temporary storage facility. Autopsies are not conducted there for a long time, they are used only for storage. Bodies used to be taken through the underpass until it flooded last year after a pipe burst. The underpass has not been repaired yet, and it is dangerous to walk there now. If there is a collapse, the walls and ceilings will be washed away. In short, we boarded up the entrances and exits, and now we walk down the street. Sometimes, of course, they die during the day, but mostly at night or early in the morning. Sometimes up to 10 people a night. It wasn't pleasant, especially when the corpse was still warm. It was uncomfortable to roll it in a bag, as if you were rolling it in jelly. You can feel the warm body through the gloves, and sometimes it feels like he's alive and just sleeping. It's good if everything goes well, if the plugs don't pop out of his nose, if his jaw doesn't open, if the formalin mixed with his fluids doesn't spurt out. The main thing here is to jump back in time and not to spill it all over. When you get stiff, your body doesn't feel like a human being, so it's easier on the moral level. You put him on a wheelbarrow and move him like a log. It's easy and comfortable, even if you're on your own. You turn it on its side, put the bag on it, turn it on the other side, put it out the other side, then you put your legs and head in, zipper it up, and that's it, let's go. At night or in the morning, the city ambulance arrives, depending on what kind of queue we are in. It's usually packed with dead people in 2 or 3 rows, it depends. We help the drivers put the bags into the back of the truck, or they drop them, and then they're free until the next call. One day my partner got sick, and the boss had to let him go in the afternoon, but it was quiet and there were hardly any calls during the day. That night I was alone. Somehow the doctors helped me to pack, although it was not their business, but it was impossible to do otherwise in this situation. At about 3:30 in the morning I took another dead person to the morgue. I remember it was an old woman, dried out, light as styrofoam. I didn't even catch my breath when I packed her up. I brought her over from the gurney to the table in the refrigerator, and then something confused me. At first I didn't understand what was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what. So I was standing among the tables, thinking, if something goes wrong, they won't let me know what's wrong, and I must solve the problem right away, or else I'll be in a bind. I realized that there should be only 4 bags with bodies, including the grandmother, but there are 5 of them. What the hell, I thought. What's the big deal? Once, an idiot drunk from another shift made a joke, climbed into a sack, and when the body carrier arrived, he sat down on a gurney. The driver went down with a heart attack. The joker was later fired. But then there were 2 orderlies there, and I didn't know where the keys were, and now I was the only one who had the keys to the morgue and the refrigerator. I felt a chill running down my back, but not from the cold. I went quietly to the bag, and there was a transparent pocket on it, where the paper on the dead person lay. I looked in it, but I could not read anything. The handwriting was unintelligible, crooked, as if the person who had written was shaking a lot. I could not understand anything. I wanted to unzip it, to see who it was, who I was packing today. I remember everyone, but something stopped me. And then, as if someone turned to the side inside the bag. I do not remember how I jumped out of the fridge, slammed the door and hurried through it, as the bag fell off the table. It was raw, like it was really jelly inside. I rushed to the jammed passageway for some reason. I guess it was just a reflex from old memory. I stood by the boards and stood in a stupor, trying to figure out what to do. I should turn back. I heard the morgue door open behind me, and the rustling of a sack was distinctive. I tore off one of the boards that was hanging on the nipples and into the passage. The lights had been out since the flood. The electricity had been cut off as a precaution. I practically walked by feel, stumbling over something. I took out my phone, which I had forgotten about, turned on the flashlight, and my heart almost stopped. The entire passage was littered with black bags, with only a path in the middle, where I was walking. Then I realized that this is not exactly our transition. Ours is square and all the walls and floor are in yellow tiles. The lights are square on the ceiling, but here is damp stone with mold. The ceiling is arched, the floor is also stone, pale grass sticking out of the cracks. On the bags are the same papers with incomprehensible handwriting. I came to my senses a little and wanted to go through the whole passageway, but for some reason there was no light in front by the exit, though a powerful light was always on there. I turned back and then the devil drew me to see what was inside the bags. It must have been some mixture of curiosity and trying to prove to myself that this was not a hallucination. I leaned over to the closest one, pulled the zipper down to the middle. Immediately from there a sour, light brown liquid flowed out, odorless. I opened the bag, and there was a man, or rather something resembling him, as it seemed to me. I opened the bag, and there was something in it that looked like a man, or rather something that resembled him. He suddenly looked like his eyelids were fluttering, closed the bag, and ran back. I ran out to the morgue door, it was open, and the bag was on the doorstep. I was about to go around it, when I heard voices from the street, voices that sounded like they were speaking in our own language, but I couldn't make out a word. One was scolding the other, judging by his intonation, and the other was justifying himself. I think, let me hide, I have already had a lot of adventures today. Near the door to a small utility room, where the janitor keeps cleaning equipment, and I hid there. I hear the two of them come in, take that bag, pull it out and throw it into the back of the car. I could even hear the springs creaking. Then they come back and go to the underpass and swear and hit the boards. After that, they went outside, slammed the car doors, the sound of the engine was heard, and then suddenly there was silence. So I sat in the back room until dawn. Strangely enough, there were no more calls, no one died, no one even noticed my absence, everyone had their own things to do. In the morning I went to the morgue with 2 guards on the pretext of checking the doors, saying that it seemed that someone opened without me. They opened it, went in. All 4 bags were in their places, the refrigerator was freezing, my fingers were cramping. It's the coldest it's ever been, even if it's on full blast. They also said that no cars were allowed on the territory, and that the corpse truck was not due to arrive for another hour. I looked at the transition afterwards, it was fine, no bags or mold, just the usual stuff. I got a couple of guesses as to what it was. 1, it was a transfer point. A body truck came for that bag. 2, but not from our world, but from another one. An underground passage, something like a station, and the bag in the morgue is a passenger who decided to go somewhere on his own. For us, in fact, this is the first step to the other world, and for them from there to us. Maybe these bags are some kind of door, a portal for crossing between worlds, something coming from there to here this way, or using our world as a transit place. 2nd, cocoons for the birth of some entities imitating humans. The passage is the maternity ward, where something deposited them, which is why it doesn't function, so the hospital staff won't get in the way. And they chose the place for a reason, the pain and suffering of humans is there as nourishment for them. So they are born in our world, and those who come for them, the deliverers, take them to the right addresses. Indirect confirmation of this is the number of all kinds of trash, non-humans, ghouls and human guys that have appeared in our world. They have no pity, no compassion, no any moral norms and conscience, just making a profit and devouring everything they see. It's impossible to call them people, though they do their best to be considered so, exalt themselves above all, boast of their position in society, and those who closely communicate with them are aware of everything, but keep silent. So that's the breakthrough. Nothing like that ever happened again, but every time I go into the morgue refrigerator, I always count the bags, and I try not to look into the transition.